Love this podcast? Support us by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Hit the link in the episode description to support us now. Thanks for listening and enjoy. I'm vengeance. I'm vengeance. I'm vengeance.
I'm vengeance.
I think it's appropriate there have been 4 versions of I'm Vengeance to open up this week's episode because we are covering The Batman, the highest grossing movie of 2022 so far, and we have a special guest which we'll get into right after this. I am Nicole.
And I'm Rolando.
And this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals.
An original podcast
about unoriginality. Oh, hey, look, my cat came. How fitting for Catwoman discussions, which we will be having. So like I said, this is a really exciting episode. We are covering The Batman, and we do have a special guest, MacKenzie Green.
Hello.
Hi, MacKenzie. So for our audience, MacKenzie Green currently serves as Vice President of Social for Who, What, Where, Click Brands. She is a co-host on The Taylor Strecker Show, which I listen to very regularly, so I suggest
daily.
You guys all check it out. Daily, almost, yeah. She's a proud University of Miami and Columbia Business School alumni. And in 2010, she served as Miss DC USA. Currently, she sits on several charity boards and is a proud member of Kappa Kappa Gamma and the Lynx Inc. Green is a proud dog mom of 2. We're of 1 over here. And she's a marathon runner with the bad knees to prove it. You can find her surfing, hiking, and looking for a quality breakfast burrito around Los Angeles.
Ooh, I mean, come on. There must be so many options. I'm sure you have a ranking list of burritos.
It never stops. When I lived in New York, I went on a burger crawl.
Yes.
I don't drink. And so I keep that energy going.
Oh my gosh. You and I would be fast friends. Food crawls are just like my thing. Yeah, I swear.
It's the best thing ever.
And we're just super, super excited to have you on this episode. For our listeners, they might know that we've already covered Batman before in an episode around when Joker came out, because we were like, we have to take this opportunity. So we did a whole 2-part episode where we compared each Batman and then we compared each Joker. Okay. And so this is kind of like this is now our 3rd Batman episode, but instead of doing every single film, we'll just kind of set it up, but really focus on this new Batman and what this new Batman brought to this kind of Bat world.
Yeah.
So
this is the 3rd episode also where we're doing that, right? Because we've been doing this podcast for so long where now we're covering reboots that we've already covered before in the past.
We're rebooting our episodes.
That's just how unoriginal Hollywood is, right? Like in 3 years' time, things are already getting rebooted already.
Yeah, seriously. But actually, before we get into some history, which is, my favorite part of the episode, I just have a couple questions for everybody. How did you guys prepare for this episode, if any? Did you rewatch any of the old movies? Any readings? Share what you guys have been doing for this whole Batman extravaganza.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I am a huge fan of 2 really good content creators on TikTok. One is this guy, Straw Hat Goofy, and the other one is Jay Stoobs. I think they're 2 of my favorite kind of nerddom, fandom content creator movie folks. So I just watched a bunch of their stuff, which I was going to do anyway. Obviously, I sat through all 3 hours of The Batman. It was long. And that was the extent of my, I have a not encyclopedic knowledge, but I think and I've said this to Rolando before. I started, and I famously said it on Taylor's show. I started as a DC Comics fan, so I am always going into any DC content being please be better.
It's a hard time to be a DC fan, I'm sure. Yeah.
So it's always funny because going to a movie like this, there was no prep. I was I'm just going to try not to watch any of the other stuff. I'm not going to rewatch Heath Ledger's The Joker again. I'm just going to go into this and hope for the best.
Nice. Okay. Rolando, did you do any rewatches or any preps?
To prep for the podcast, actually. So I didn't watch anything before the Batman, and I actually tried to avoid the trailers also because I think trailers nowadays just give away too much. I think what I did though afterwards, I just rewatched Batman Forever, which is the one that has the Riddler with Jim Carrey's performance.
Jim Carrey's Riddler, yeah.
And they're just so dynamically different, but I think I appreciate them both. I was hunting down my version of Hush, the comic book, because I felt Hush was the thing that came to mind after I left the theater. I'm just like, okay, they did like almost a semi version. So, and Nicole, if you don't know, Hush is like one of these. That's actually the first comic book that got me back into comic book reading.
Okay.
After I had like not been reading comics for so long, and Hush introduces his new villain. It also introduces is one of the bigger Riddler storylines, because Riddler. I don't know. When you think of Batman, you think of Joker, not really the Riddler. So, it was an interesting one to reread and stuff. And I do like the Hush storyline. So I'm hoping that they do stuff with it.
In the future, yeah. Well, for me, I'm not the comic book fan in the bunch, and I'm not merely the TV one. I'm a film person, and so I was just like, oh wow, I get an opportunity to check out Batman Returns and Michelle Pfeiffer, pretty much doing drag. Yes, I'll take it. A little bit of Batman Forever, because that one's very that's one of my earliest movie obsession memories. And I actually rewatched Batman from 1966 because, now spoiler alert for this whole episode, but the 4 villains in Batman 1966 are also in The Batman.
Yes.
Oh, I guess it's funny. I didn't even think about that.
If you think about it, and I'm sorry for a little bit of a spoiler there. And I also was just super excited for the movie experience, because obviously, with the pandemic hopefully ending soon. Obviously, we're not out of it, but people are going back to the movie theaters, and I'm such a fan of movie theater experiences. Yes. So I saw it Friday night, 7 p.m. IMAX, sold out, and I gotta say, the experience itself was freaking wonderful. What about you guys?
I am definitely, so I love the theater also. I spent some time, I had an incredible boss at Paramount who was very big on see the movies in theaters, because as she said to us, we work in the business of film going to theater. You should understand and know and watch the trailers, do all this stuff. So I'm the same way. I'm just a very anxious llama at all times. So I have to go to the first showing on a random day where I'm I can have eyes on everybody in the theater. I'm I can clock everyone. I'm don't get up, don't move, stay still. So I definitely arranged my work schedule in a way that when I finished my last meeting, I live really close to a movie theater. I finished my last meeting, walked over there, and went to go see it, and it was quite the experience. It was we even had somebody pulled a fire alarm. Again, I'm an anxious llama, so the moment the movie started, we were right about to start, and then something happened, and before the woman could even say, "There, please get to the exit," I was downstairs and outside. And people around me were like, I thought it was part of the movie. And I was like, that's how they get you. So the guy was even the guy that took my ticket was like, how'd you get down here so fast? I was like, don't worry about it. I've been prepared. I stay ready. So
I've been prepared for this my whole life.
So I started the movie with a full-on adrenaline dump, and around the 90-minute mark, I had to be I think I need a snack, because my entire body is now calming down. But it was I love being in the theater, but my God, was that the full embodiment of my worst nightmare.
Wow. Okay, so mixed feelings with this viewing a little bit. Maybe.
I know it was good, and I loved it, but God bless everybody that sat around me that watched me take off like a friggin' Looney Tunes character.
Appropriate for Warner Brothers content. Huh?
Exactly.
So Eddie and we could not see it over the weekend because I was fortunately for me, but I was at a bachelor party over the weekend in Seattle. Ooh. And none of my friends wanted to leave the fun stuff to go see the Batman. Unfortunately, 3 hours out of the weekend, I guess, makes sense. But
that's understandable.
I was going to try to see it on the cheap Tuesday ticket day. However, Eddie was free, so we figured, let's go Monday. And I think that was a mistake for me, because I think the pandemic has ruined people's etiquette at movie theaters. Because, okay.
Oh my God! Yes. I lost my mind. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I lost my mind.
Same with me. I was ready to. I did snap at the people immediately next to me because it was a couple. They were young. They were just talking throughout the first 5 minutes of the movie. I'm just this is not how it's gonna go for the rest of this film. I had to tell them, hey guys, can you just keep it down? The guy wanted to fight me, and I was just no, I'm not looking for a fight. I'm just telling you guys, just keep it down, whisper to each other. But they were talking at full volume. And then next to Eddie was a group of younger kids. They're not kids. They were like maybe in their 20s, early 20s, but they were just like talking throughout the whole film like about comic book nerdery, which is fine, but like don't do it during the movie. Just wait until after.
Just wait.
Wow.
I had a guy and his girlfriend, and they, you know how you like people. This makes no sense to me. So I intentionally always get the seat that's in front of, where the bar is for handicap seating. So I intentionally picked the row right behind that so I can prop my feet up on the bar. Homeboy decides, well, I want to prop my feet up on the cup holders because the armrests were up. And when I got there and I was like, hey, I need to put the armrest down, like, you're going to have to move your feet. He tried to act like I was inconveniencing him. I was like, playa, that's not how the seats work. This is my armrest. You didn't, like, and then the whole time to his girlfriend, he was like, oh, I mean, she could have sat any place else. I was like, again, assigned seats. I am here. I wanted this seat. I specifically chose this. Like,
that is so crazy. I'm so sorry, guys, because I literally, like, I had the most well-behaved audience. Everyone
so lucky.
Was just, they were in the movie. They were quiet. There was nothing. Like, any noise you heard was a reaction. You
know what the problem is? I'm usually an iPick girl, and that's like, that's a world where people have paid money for this experience. So everybody shuts the F up. They are like, I paid too much money for this seat and this food. Just shut up. And that was like, I was like, this is what I get for coming to the regular theater.
This is true.
On a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
Like,
you went to a Carasotes, Rolando, so that's what you get as well.
I mean, they are. But
we usually have great experiences there.
Yeah, the seats are so comfy.
But we're also one of 6 people on Tuesday.
Usually. Yeah. It's not like so Spider-Man right now. So the Spider-Man and the Batman have been the 2 movies that have been just packed.
Yes.
When we've gone and stuff. So everything else that we've seen in theaters so far, right.
I have to say though, this like not. I mean, I know this is about Warner Brothers, but props to Kevin Feige. I have to, as I sit here in my Danvers shirt, I don't even own any Warner stuff anymore, any DC stuff. But I was like, I kept thinking, I was like, again, this is the difference between Marvel and DC, right? Is like the Marvel crowd is very like, it was like a mix of ages and like backgrounds and young and old and people being like, oh my God, Spider-Man, and being like, can't wait, let's go, guys, be quiet, yeah, it's the Daredevil. This was like the moodiest, older, like, like just shut up, just watch the movie.
Everyone wearing their shirts,
like you had like the full-on like dude bros, like neckbeards who came being like, Riddler's finally getting his due, and then you have like the guys who were like, I'm like Batman. Like I was just like, oh, this is a different energy. I haven't been around this crowd in a minute.
Yeah,
that's true.
And that's a lot of what the Batman fandom kind of brings with it,
Yes.
So let's start getting
into
that fandom,
it though, so
yes,
let's be careful how we
I know, like that's the funny part is like I grew up being like, I mean, God bless my parents because they must have thought it was so creepy because I loved Superman. Like I was like, I get him. He is like an alien dropped on another planet. And then you get to be a moody teenager and you're like, I'm the Batman. And then it didn't help that Alicia Silverstone, who I loved from Clueless, was Batgirl. So then I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to be Batgirl. Like I'm training, like I took Taekwondo, did all the things because I was going to be Batgirl. And so it's really funny when I'm like in the theater and it's like, I don't know, it's like you have these moments where you're like, oh, but then now looking at it as an adult, I'm like, I get why my parents were freaked out because it's like this man is an orphan vigilante.
He's a little bit of a weirdo.
The whole time I kept being like, God, he's such a weirdo, like with his emo bangs and it's like walking out of shadows. And then I was just like, this is why he appealed to me as like a teenager, being like, yeah, he gets it.
That's so funny.
Seriously,
but I did the same thing. I mean, I joined karate. It was both Batman and Power Rangers for me. The chubby Hispanic kid trying to be a karate person.
I mean, I was convinced, and I think, and you probably had the same thing too, where it's like because they had the mask on, you're like, oh yeah, I could because I couldn't. When I said to my friends, let me be Scary Spice, it's like MacKenzie, you can't be Scary Spice, but like. I can pick any Ranger I want because I got a mask on, so they don't know.
That's true.
All right, so let's get a little bit into this movie because there's a lot to talk about. a little bit of history,
Yes.
and I'm going to keep it super, super brief, right? TV show in the 60s. I mean, before that, there was Batman serial films in the 40s and whatnot, but TV show in the 60s with a movie didn't do so well, and after 3 seasons fizzled out. But then in 1977, Star Wars came out and changed everything in Hollywood. So the next year, they made Superman, and Superman was a massive hit. So they immediately greenlit a Batman movie. But that movie took 10 years to come to fruition because also in between, you had 2 more Superman movies that didn't do that well and kind of was like, Warner Brothers was like, should we do this? When Warner Brothers became, they affiliated with Time Inc. and became Time Warner, was when they started re-strategizing and being like, how can we make a film that we can also highly market and make merchandise out of? And that is when they decided to put the best that they had on the lot with Tim Burton and Michael Keaton and Goober and Peters, and they made and Prince.
And Prince.
Yes,
and Jack
Prince,
Nicholson.
dude. And Jack Nicholson. Don't forget that part.
And they greenlit Batman 1989. They had a 9-month long plan of like promotions and merchandise, and like the poster was just the bat symbol. It didn't have the name. Like Bat Fever was insane in 1989, and that really, I think, did kind of kick off a superhero craze within this country. Obviously, it went off next level in the 21st century, but if that movie never really came out or never, had the impact that it did, things I think would have looked differently, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
for sure.
think
$1,000,000%.
so. Yeah. And of course, it had so many sequels. So 1992, Batman Returns.
Which is my favorite, I think.
And it's the most unique.
Yeah, I have to say, Batman Return. That Tim Burton era was like comic books come to life.
Yes. Joel Schumacher took over and made Batman Forever, which is a personal favorite of mine because that's when I realized I liked the ladies.
Everybody has that movie that makes them go like,
oh yeah. Nicole
Like-
Kidman as Chase Meridian. Like I wanted that poster in my room, and my mom was like, "No, no." Batman and Robin in 1997, which actually was kind of important though because Warner Brothers was like, we can't just have anyone take like our big money makers. We need to really be choosy about who can make these movies, and they finally let Christopher Nolan take his hand at it in 2005. Obviously, he does the Dark Knight trilogy, and that happens with Marvel, like corresponds with Marvel coming out. So now superheroes have taken over the world.
Yes.
And then the Zack Snyder era happens, and we get
fun.
we kind of want to gloss over that. But we've kind of had, we've kind of had a Batman or a Batman affiliated thing for every 2 or 3 years
decade.
for a decade now. Yeah.
Each decade for sure definitely sees a Batman, but
Yeah.
Well,
I think like 5 years.
I had a buddy who worked at Warner during the Snyder era, right? And the tea on that was always that like Ben Affleck came in for a general. He met with the head of the studio, and she was like, you can pick, basically it was kind of like, welcome to the team. You can pick anything you want from the Warner Brothers catalog. She was like, you can remake Citizen Kane if you want to. What do you want to do, Ben? What is the thing that we can do to make you happy? And then basically his answer was, well, I felt like I got really embarrassed playing Daredevil, so I want to be Batman. So that's how we got Ben Affleck as
That's how we got that, wow.
I always felt very resentful when we got that era of Batman, like the Snyder era, because I was like, he doesn't care about the mantle. He just doesn't want to get embarrassed.
True, yeah.
And that was not a smart payoff because
he's still embarrassed himself.
Right.
Yeah.
It's such a shame too because actually though I liked him though as Bruce Wayne, to be totally honest. And
to
I
be
actually
honest,
loved the costume design.
Yeah.
But the movies themselves were just like kind of like I wanted more. I wanted better.
For sure.
I mean, I think the problem is across the town, you've got, a world in which men and women are literally playing parts that like people were like, this is like you've got Robert Downey Jr. playing a man who needs redemption to find his soul. And you're like, where have I heard that story before, RDJ? It's like, it's like, the mantle means something now and you take it up for these different characters.
It's true. Yeah. So I remember actually when after like the Dawn, what was it? Superman versus Batman, Dawn of Justice.
Yes.
Okay,
Justice.
They had released that there was going to be a Ben Affleck solo movie, The Batman, right, Rolando?
Yes. So that was actually announced in 2014. Ben Affleck was supposed to direct and co-write it with Jeff Johns, and I actually like Ben Affleck directed flicks. I was just like, oh, this could be interesting. But then we saw Batman v Superman. It's like, oh, are they still going to go the Zack Snyder route, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think, the ultimate problem with it. It's not the Batman. It wasn't Ben Affleck. It was Snyder's vision that kind of was just like kind of a little bit, I don't know. It was a little one-dimensional.
And I think they never had a canonical world, right? It's like we randomly got a reboot of Superman, but we were also coming off the Smallville era, which I loved. And I was like, so is that not canon anymore? And I was like,
right.
So what was that show and what's this? And now, like, Jesse Eisenberg was a great Lex Luthor, but it's like I just spent like 8 years watching a story about how Lex and Clark grew up together. It's like, guys, figure out your story here.
That's also a good point, right? Because there was no continuity and stuff, and because I think at this point they're also trying to catch up with Marvel.
Yes,
was the other problem. So like you just like they were just kind of like going all. They were a little wishy. They also didn't have someone at the helm. They put Zack Snyder there, but that was kind of a mistake.
Yeah.
They tried to fix it with putting Jeff Johns for a little while because he's like a prolific comic book writer, but it wasn't working out. But Ben Affleck had mentioned that they were working on a script that was going to be focused around Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth, which is like I thought a wonderful comic, a little dark, and they were also kind of jumping off a little bit off the Arkham Asylum popularity game, the games, and smart, I think, but I don't know, because they were trying to. I think the goal for Warner Brothers was just throw in as many supervillains as possible, see who sticks, and then continue franchises with them.
I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, you look across the
everything at it,
it's like, you look up and you're like, Avengers is happening, so you're like, oh, let's get the Justice League together, and it's like, yo, pump your brakes, like, slow down.
Let's get to know some of these characters a little bit first.
Yeah.
Affleck stepped down as director in 2017. He claims that he wanted the director to be someone who would be excited for the project. I guess hinting already that like he wasn't happy, and this is all happening during the midst of the behind the scenes drama of the Justice League. So, and that itself was like kind of a big kerfuffle that we would find out years later. We covered it on our podcast when we covered Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yeah. Because I argue that's like an interesting remake situation that was going on for the WB. Reeves actually got added to be director in February 2017. And his one stipulation was that he wanted complete control, visionary control. And Warner Brothers was just like, okay, take it.
We're desperate.
Which, because I think it was signaling also the end of like Warner Brothers doing these like continuity films, right? Like they were just like saying, because they're like, maybe we're going to just like focus on making good films and not worry about how they are connected overall.
Yeah, interesting.
And I think they've had some payoff as a result. Like the Suicide Squad, for example, I liked.
I liked Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad is where I was like, I'm not clever enough for this. But I'm also somebody that like the first time I saw Guardians of the Galaxy, I was like, what is this? Why is this? Who made this? And then it's like, then I was like, damn it, now I have to watch it because it's important. So that's the way I felt when they were like, guess who's making the Suicide? I was like, damn it, here we go again.
And then of course the Joker is another one of those. And
Harley Quinn, the Birds of Prey.
The Birds of Prey, but that was also that was like that was connected to like the DCEU, but they're also kind of not. I don't know. It's just weird. Like Warner Brothers hasn't figured out their formula, but production did begin in January 2020. I remember that Pattinson was announced in May of 2019, and that was actually
I shit talked him on the internet with everybody else.
Yep.
Did you?
Like,
okay.
Oh, I was like, who asked for this?
Yeah, Edward Cullen. Exactly.
Who wants him to be Batman?
Yeah.
I'm like one of the. This was my unpopular opinion, but I'm always very open minded when they cast people to play these roles because Robert Pattinson. I just, at this point, he was kind of like, I knew him obviously as a Twilight guy, but he'd also been doing a lot of indie films. I was like, I don't know, maybe he could. Maybe he could pull something. I mean, look at Heath Ledger. That's it. Heath Ledger was one that sold me because I shit-talked Heath Ledger when he was first cast. And then he gave us one of the most brilliant performances of the Joker.
For sure, yeah.
So, still to this day.
No, that's when I learned my lesson. It's just like, let me give people a chance before I speak.
Pattinson, I think, has been actively trying to DiCaprio his career where it's like, I don't want to be seen as like a teen idol anymore. Now I'm going to really be like working with like directors and really be like one for
I
them,
agree.
one for me picks. And I think he and Kristen Stewart too have like effectively kind of turned their careers around from Twilight, you know, a
Poor
franchise
Taylor
that they
Lautner. He's still
He's
a
and
werewolf.
he's
yeah,
still
poor
trying
guy.
to still trying to figure it out.
We're waiting for him for his breakaway. But I just want to say, Matt Reeves, you know, before he got this, he had done 2 of the Planet Apes, new franchise. He had done Cloverfield and whatnot. So it's like he didn't really have. I mean, even though I love the new Planet of the Apes films, you know, he didn't really have enough for I think people to get excited about seeing his version of the Batman.
Wait, did he do 1 Cloverfield Lane?
I don't know if he did the sequel, but I know he did the original film, the first
I
film.
thought that was this guy.
What guy?
The guy who did Star Trek.
No. He
No.
might have produced it.
Oh,
J.J. Abrams,
okay.
but no, he.
I thought J.J.
it was
Abrams did Clover. Okay, so that
No.
makes sense. Then.
Yeah.
Look at me,
But yeah,
messing up my film history as usual.
but I'm really glad that Warner Brothers kind of entrusted it with someone who, like Ben Affleck said, really was just excited about the project and whatnot.
Yeah.
So now here we have the Batman, and I was listening to an interview with Matt Reeves. He said overall this was like a 5-year endeavor for him, and I think that that amount of time and stuff that they've had with it kind of also shows that they've had the time to kind of make this movie what it is, and what is the Batman about. It's kind of another origin story, but told a little differently. You know, now we got a year to Batman. So we haven't seen it's not like Batman Begins where it's like, I'm going to be a Batman. This is a still kind of figuring it out and still trying to ingratiate himself within Gotham kind of Batman.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's interesting because I thought he was 16, honestly, but I think he's supposed to be 30. But he acts like he's 16.
Well, I think what this movie does significantly better than other Batman movies do, which I fully agree when people are like, I think this is a better Batman than Bruce Wayne, is that I kind of always rolled my eyes at this idea that Batman is portrayed as though he's like a billionaire James Bond, right? That he's like super slick and cool and it's like, God bless him. I'll always love Clooney, but that scene where it's what are they bidding on Poison Ivy and they pull out their credit cards
The Batman
and they're
credit
yeah,
card.
and he's put it on the back card. It's always been this very he's a slick dude, and even Christian Bale's to a certain extent was he was more of a broody James Bond. This really was a super weirdo, awkward creeper that as Bruce Wayne because I think that's always been the point, right? Is Batman is Batman. Bruce Wayne is the alter ego. And so when he would be Bruce Wayne, he was so awkward and weird with his, like I said, his emo bang and his his dark liner all over his face. And you were just oh, there would be scenes where he was standing there and I was like, you're so uncomfy weird. Put the suit back on, you rando. And then he would come out as Batman and I'd be like, oh, okay. And even then it was still the cops being like, he's weird, and everybody being like, this is creepy, are we gonna act like this is normal? And so I kind of loved that part of it.
Yes, I totally agree. I actually kind of loved this emo Batman because it's also he isn't the Batman that we've seen in other films. He doesn't really know what he's fucking doing yet. No. And he's still trying to figure it out. And he's still trying to process his grief and his own identity. And so, we get this really kind of out of it in his feelings Batman. And I think I just want to share this article that /film.com wrote really quick with you guys, which is the 15 most emo moments in the Batman ranked. And I just want to point out some of them. One, prolonged eye contact with a fellow orphan.
Oh yeah,
yes, that was my favorite.
I was just trying to figure out what's the end game in this scene. Why are we staring at these
I
things so
loved
hard?
it so much. I kept waiting for the kid to be like, "You okay? What do you want?"
14, rewatching his lover's quarrel with Selena. 13, showing no affection to cats. 12, indoor sunglasses at breakfast. Shirtless spray painting sesh by the fire.
Yes, that was so wild to me. That was my favorite moment.
Yep.
Well, Robert Pattinson needed to. I'm sure he was contractually obligated to work on his body, so he needed
yeah.
to like show it off at least
we
once.
need this,
Wasn't that one of the jokes that Zoe Kravitz made at one point, that when they were like, how's filming with the Batman going? This was like early 2020. She was like, oh, production's halted because Rob hasn't put on enough muscle yet, and people like ran with it.
Because I think he also said, he said in interviews, he's apparently known to lie in interviews, but he said that he just doesn't work out. He just refuses to work out for the role.
Yeah.
He wanted to be like Adam West, is what he said, I think.
Ooh, then I love that inspiration. Just a couple more because they're hilarious. Quote, Alfred, I don't want your cufflinks is another emo moment. Every time he calls himself Vengeance, emerging from darkness, and of course, bad journaling. So, he's a
bad journaling. That's actually a good one.
That's a good one. He's really, I'm going to put this in the show notes because also the blurbs that they wrote with it is pretty hilarious. But overall, like, this is definitely the most emo Batman. Another moment that I actually laughed. I was the only one who laughed out loud in the theater. But after Alfred wakes up from a coma and he like opens his eyes and he looks over and he's so happy to see Bruce there. What's the first thing out of Bruce's mouth?
You lied to me.
You lied to me. And I just started laughing and nobody else was laughing. And I was like, oh,
I think I definitely chuckled on that one too. I'm just like, okay, what a warm and fuzzy welcoming.
My good giggle, I had a good tee-hee at no guns. That's your thing. That made me tee-hee-hee.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
That was a good one too. Yeah. But even though it made me like laugh at it, I actually, again, I loved it because I was like, oh, I'm down with this, like, just completely off his rockers and his feelings, Bruce Wayne, because it makes sense to me, and I love a not fully formed Bruce Wayne / Batman. And I agree, this is more Batman, no Bruce Wayne, because he doesn't even know who Bruce Wayne is yet.
Right.
I mean, he's not even running his own company.
He even says at one point, he's like, can you please go to work?
And I love that other moment when Alfred's like telling him, you gotta take responsibility, and he goes, "You're not my dad."
Yeah.
You're not my
son. That was a little tantrum.
Yeah. But the great thing about this movie is that we do see him becoming more of a detective. This is very much a detective film, and again,
it was a good detective story. It was a really good detective story.
If I were to like kind of sum this up to anybody who's listening, I would say, David Fincher 7 meets like a film noir from the 40s, meets like Serpico kind of, or like French Connection from the 70s. So it's like a cop drama with a serial killer film, but it's also very film noirish. I mean, we really get to see him be a detective. And again, this movie does an excellent job of showing how much of a weirdo and an outcast he is in this world. That shot where it's like the POV of him walking and all of the cops are looking at him, and then he enters the crime scene full uniform against everybody else's uniform. It's like, what is this guy doing here?
I don't know why, for some reason, that also made me kind of like chuckle a little bit, because you don't ever see it like that, right? It's like every movie prior to this has always been like, when Batman shows up, everybody's like, oh, thank God, it's Batman. Oh, yay, it's Batman. Batman, save me. And then like this one really was like a bunch of cops just being like, really?
Like, you really want him to touch this stuff?
Yeah.
Which is interesting, right? Because I think for the most part, even though like there was a lot of corruption in the GCPD, I think what we're seeing there is just like normal people realize like this is not normal behavior. Villains, they'll be terrified because they know they're in the wrong here. But when it came to the cops, like they were all just like, no, this is, why are we putting our trust in this guy?
Because I think that's always been like, again, like the way Batman's been portrayed and the way you understand him as a little kid, where you're like, yeah, he's the good guy, like he puts on the suit and he fights crime. This was like the first time I really was able to zoom out and be like, yeah, this actually wouldn't be helpful if there was just a dude going around being like, I'll handle it.
Yeah, that reminds me. Yeah, which I appreciate when the cops are just like, you're really letting him mess with all the evidence.
Yeah, you're
like,
just gonna let him
what are you doing,
things?
Gordon?
Yeah, and again, that was something I also loved because we never really seen this spin before, you know. And again, this is a serial killer movie, and the serial killer in this one is the Riddler. And the portrayal of the Riddler and the way that they take it is just one we've never seen before. And I thought, Paul Dano as the Riddler was just one of the absolute best things about this film.
So good. I think the Riddler has always been my favorite Batman villain, I think. And like you hit on it, like this idea of Jim Carrey's Riddler is one of my favorite, because I love Jim Carrey, right? So he was able to turn it into this like very silly, weird guy that I was like, so honestly going into this knowing how dark it was, I kept being like, how are they going to do all these silly, stupid riddles and stuff? And then I think where I knew I was going to love it is because like the posters had hidden messages in them. Like you had to get a black light to read like the cipher in the posters and all this crazy stuff. And that's when I was
that's
like,
wild.
that's when I was like, oh, I'm
So
into
cool.
this. Like I'm into
Yeah.
whatever this
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And then Paul Dano to me is like him and he's gonna be playing in Marvel. They're both very hot, but they play weird people a lot of times. There's like two dudes. I can't remember the other guy's name, but they like. I was like, oh, Paul Dano's a great weirdo. Like he plays weirdos so well that I was like, ooh, this is gonna be creepy.
Scarily
and I like
well,
the,
yeah.
Yeah, and I like the idea that it was a little bit like rooted in realism, but not like because there is a moment where your brain goes, oh, somebody could ostensibly pull this off, like
Yes.
like radicalize and move the internet and a fringe group of people. Where would that ever come from? A fringe group of dudes to be like, we deserve to be in charge and we just need to create chaos to do it. That would, absolutely would never happen in real life. But like the way they pulled it off, I just thought was so like, it worked in a way that it went from being like goofy cartoon, like riddle me this, to this very like, oh, that would be a way to pull it off.
Yeah.
Now.
Well,
Yeah.
Paul Dano.
Yeah.
He said that his inspiration was Zodiac, the Zodiac killer,
That's
which
the way it
makes
came
it
across.
creepier.
Yeah.
And definitely when you go in that realm, it just becomes completely sinister. And there were actually a lot of moments in the film, also the use of social media and whatnot, where it was just so close to like things that have happened in reality that it was really effective.
Well, yeah, I mean, they were definitely hearkening that QAnon movement, the
Right?
Proud Boys a little bit, like kind of like this anti-government. We want to bring down government and make it ours.
It was very incelly too in this whole
Yes,
thing
yes,
where he was
absolutely.
like,
Yes.
where he was like, we should be in charge. We're the ones that are gonna unmask all the corruption. And
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, ooh. I was like, I like it. It's a little,
Yes,
it's a little
yes.
too honest. Like,
Yeah. And a subplot is that we get actually Catwoman and that we meet Selena Kyle, played by Zoë Kravitz, and her whole subplot that, Batman pretty much finds her and even creeps on her Window style.
very creepy.
Very
He didn't
creepy.
Turn away when she started undressing.
Yeah.
Rude.
Yeah, I mean, he's there to gather evidence, but still, he's not going to look away. I mean, I don't. Who would look away?
I don't condone, but I don't misunderstand either because Zoe Kravitz, amazing.
She's hot, yeah.
I mean,
she's so
like,
gorgeous.
you know how you said, Rolando, like this idea of like when they said Robert Pattinson, you were like, yay. They said Robert Pattinson, and I was like, oh God. And then they were like, and Zoe Kravitz is the Catwoman, and I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll go see it, because I was like, if anybody's gonna play Catwoman, it makes sense to me that it's her. And I think we'll probably get into this later of like our favorite Catwoman, but because of who my favorite is, I was like, oh, finally it's given back to like a sultry, sexy woman of color who can like who feels a little like, because I always felt like that's the point, is like Catwoman both sticks out and doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and to me it's like, oh good, like we're back to that again, where it's a woman that like in a crowd of what Gotham is, you notice her, but somehow she manages to blend in simultaneously.
Yeah. So Batman and Catwoman in this movie, they kind of team up. He realizes, he can use her to get some inside information as to what the Riddler is trying to pretty much give the message to the Batman. Like Batman realizes early on, like I'm supposed to put these puzzle pieces together. So he collaborates with the Catwoman and uses her to kind of like go underground with Carmine Falcone and Oswald Cobblepot, who is also in this movie. But before we get into those guys too, again, Selena Kyle, her relationship with the Batman is really interesting in this one because he knows that she's Selena Kyle and often calls her Selena. There's no mention of Catwoman, but she doesn't know who he is at all. He does not kind of like return the favor in the sense where it's like, I'll let you get to know me. But maybe that's kind of fitting because, again, I don't think he thinks of himself yet as Bruce Wayne. I think he thinks of himself as Batman.
That's always been Batman's relationships with women, and usually even partners. I think he knew Barbara Gordon, who she was, but she didn't know who he was for like a few years. So,
well, I feel like at least in media, right? Because I'm not a comic book.
That's true. In media,
there's always a moment where Batman and Catwoman kind of let each other see themselves for who they are. You know, the big thing in Batman Returns when he tries to like, reach out to her and be like, hey, this is us. This is us right here.
see, my favorite moment is before that, when they both realize when they're dancing under the mistletoe and they're exchanging their sweet little whispers to each other. I think that's such a sweet moment. And then they're like, oh my God, do we have to fight right now? Like we're in a ballroom,
Yeah.
Like,
They gave me very like Killmonger Nakia vibes, right? Where it's like they both have the same mission, but they have different ways they want to approach it. Where it's like Batman's like, we can figure this out, but like we got to use the system. We got to go through the cops. We got to like, you know, go through. I was like, bro, you're a vigilante, and you're like, the justice system. We should trust it. And I'm like, clearly you don't. Hence the suit.
Yes.
Like, I don't know who you are now. And then it's like, and then you have her being like, yeah, we have to get the answers, but I don't trust the system. Like the system is unkind. And that's why I get back to like, sorry to get on my soapbox, but like that's why I get back to it works when Catwoman is portrayed as a certain person, because if anybody else said that line, what, we have to go by this system with another privileged white man, like we'd all be like, all right, Anne Hathaway, if she said it. But there's something about Zoe Kravitz saying it that you're kind of like, all right, I like what, okay,
Yeah.
I see what's happening here.
That's a very astute. Yeah, absolutely true.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, you can understand, like, on many levels why her character does not trust the system for both, like, how she was raised, how she has seen the world of Gotham. And then, like, on the other side, you have, like, billionaire Bruce Wayne, who's like, the system works. So, like, that part of it is cool to kind of watch them, like, want the same thing, but go about it in entirely different ways.
Yeah, and I really liked that Selena also very much had, like, a clear mission in this film. And I like it when, like, we know why a character's on, like, in the story and what their motivations are and where they came from and all this stuff. And I think all of those characters did that really well. You know, I might get heat for that, but I think that's one of the reasons that The Dark Knight to me isn't this perfect film, because we have we don't know where the Joker came from or why he's doing it. Every single villain in every Batman movie, other than the Joker, in The Dark Knight, we know where they came from and why they're doing what they're doing.
That is so true, because there is
but
that
the
moment
Joker
when
just
Anne
comes out of nowhere.
The Joker really is somebody that, like, but that's what makes him scary. I mean, let's be honest.
That's what makes him scary, but that's what made Joker 2019 so great. Is because we got that and we understood where he comes from. And like,
but see, I'll be honest, I liked the Heath Ledger, like, unhinged man that came out of nowhere, right?
His performance is great. But the writing of him...
Oh, the writing is horrible. He made magic out of awful. But it's like, I don't know, for some reason, I think that's why... That's what appeals to me about sometimes superhero movies. Is sometimes it's the guy that has... Because I think ultimately that's evil people in the world. Sometimes there are people that have all the motivation and backstory to why they did what they did. And you're like, you're still bad. And then there's some people, it's like, you catch the wrong weirdo on a Thursday and your entire life could get ruined. So like, that's the part that I always kind of, you know, that's very dark, but that's the part I like about Joker that we got, was like, all these other people had reasons and he's just like, I
have no reason. Yeah, I'm just an anarchist. I have no reason. Yeah, I mean, I get it, and like it does work because the Joker's and Heath Ledger's so brilliant. But that was always one of my major gripes, where it was like, where did he come from? We get it in,
You're like,
in
everybody
Batman
else.
1989. You know, the only other character who just kind of showed up was Two-Face, and that's why Two-Face doesn't really work in Batman Forever, because it's like, who is this guy? Why is he doing what he's doing?
Well, that's true. In Batman Forever, he doesn't work as well, despite, I think, the over-the-top performance. That come to appreciate.
For kitsch reasons, I love it. But that's one of the things that I really appreciated about this film, was that we know where Selena Kyle came from and what she wants, you know, her origin. Yep. The Riddler, too, we actually get to go inside, you know, his mind when we enter his apartment. We know why he became who he is. And we are getting, you know, some backstory as to Oswald Cobblepot and the world he lives in and his relationship.
That I loved. I was... So, like, I love a good Irishman. I mean, I have yet to find one I don't find absolutely gorgeous. So, again, it was like, Collin Farrell's in the movie. And there had to have been at least 10 times where I had to be like, that's Collin Farrell.
Right.
Yeah. That's Collin Farrell.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
At one point, I told my mom, I said, I was like, my brain went, oh, it's Joe Pesci in a fat suit. And then I was like, no, that's Collin Farrell. And I think he plays... I mean, again, because I love the cartoonery of, like, the Burton era and all that stuff.
Yes.
And there was something about Danny DeVito's that still to this day, him eating the raw fish still sits in my mind with his creepy little penguin hands that, like, then made me not like Penguin. And then obviously the Batman TV show, when they tried again, they've always introduced... Penguin has always gotten the most cartoony thing, right? Like, they always find a way to, like, make him look like a penguin.
Like a damn penguin,
Yeah, make him out of nowhere start waddling. And there was something about this one that I thought was so brilliant. And I do have to say, the beat that I thought was funny and, like, tip of the hat to Reeves was this moment when they tied him up.
And
he
waddles?
trying to and he
Yeah.
was trying to waddle after the car, and I was like, I love this so much.
Yeah.
I was like, finally,
Yeah.
you got one waddle
Yeah.
out of the whole movie.
Yeah. You know, to talk about Collin Farrell just a
Yeah.
little bit, you know, at first I was like, do we need to put an actor in a fat suit? Can't we just hire someone
Right.
who's like more appropriate for the
Robust.
role? But I also loved this idea of like, we'll never see anyone look like that again as long as it's like it's Oswald Cobblepot. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like it's so unique to the film. And again, he just completely disappeared in that. And there was something really nice about that where we all experienced where we weren't watching a movie star. And
Right.
that we don't really get that a lot, you know? So there is like, I have mixed feelings about like the casting, but overall, like it was really pleasing to be like, I can't even hear it in his voice that that's Collin Farrell. And
Right?
that's
Oh,
just
no.
so
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
I was blown away by that performance, and the prosthetic work, the makeup work was just like top
Fantastic.
notch.
Yeah.
I love good special effects makeup and practical stunts and like practical effects. So like it was just that whole like car chase was like what I
Yes.
love about movies, where it was like, this is not a green screen car chase. This is a
Yeah.
real car chase. That is a real fire. That is really him flying through. Like, this is really Collin Farrell, like full close up with all the makeup and
Yeah.
prosthetics in the
Yeah.
in the side view mirror. It was just, it was chef's kiss. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was chef's kiss. Oh, I say that too. I love that you say that. And you know, just to really quickly bounce off of that, you know, what I love about a movie experience too is when you're watching something that's just so wonderfully shot and highly stylized. You know,
Yes.
there was so much rain going on that added to the aesthetic of the film.
Yes.
Like, does it not ever stop raining in Gotham? And
Never.
that first fight when he's fighting those I don't know. I kind of
I didn't
thought they
know-
I
were
think-
Joker fans, but
They might be because
They might be.
Spoiler alert: we have hints that Joker is at the end, right?
Can I just say fully to
Yeah.
your spoiler alert? When I kept seeing, again, I love Barry Keogh. Like, I cannot find an Irishman I don't like. So, like, I kept seeing Barry Keogh at all the premieres and stuff. Or he would, like, take pictures of himself with Batman socks on. And I was like, bro, Kevin Feige signs your checks. You are an Eternal. Stop. Calm down. Like, I'm so glad you're supporting your fellow Irishman, Colin, but like, calm down. And then, like, obviously at the end when he's like, what do you have more of? The less time goes on or whatever. And I was like, whoever the hell is playing him is creepy as hell. And then
Yeah.
later, like, again, the content creator was like, and Barry Keogh makes an appearance. And I was like, shut up. And I was like, who
Yeah.
is doing makeup for this movie?
Yeah. Well,
was
the way they shot
very
him too
well lit
was
scene.
was
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
great. You know, that kind of like you
So you
see
don't
him but
really
you
see-
don't.
yeah.
Yeah. But you
It
know,
was-
I
and
mean,
then again, it shows you the canon of the characters, right? It's like you're just seeing a side profile. You hear nothing. Homeboy gets the riddle, goes a friend, and then you hear that creepy ass laugh, and
Laugh.
you're like,
Yeah,
and
the
you're like,
laugh was
God, I
great, yeah.
forgot. I love Arkham Asylum. It's filled with all the weirdos and creeps and villains. I love it.
yeah.
Matt Reeves really kept this role really under wraps. They filmed
Yes.
fake scenes also, so that way the press would get it and not realize that he's the Joker. That's what
I
they were
love that
receiving him
so
for.
much. I mean, I
Yeah.
really could not figure out why he was like at the premiere and so excited. I was just like, oh, Barry will go to the opening of an
He's
envelope.
so supportive.
Like, good for
Oh my
you.
gosh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
was like, wow. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I
At
guess
least he
that's
got
an
to go to
Irish
the
thing.
premiere. Like poor Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield weren't allowed at the premiere for Spider-Man because they didn't want to leak that they appear.
I still to this day think that's the funniest thing ever, is the idea of like, you're Toby, you haven't acted in a decade, you get this thing, and now you and Andrew Garfield, like Andrew said, are just two middle-aged white dudes with masks on going to like, you know, the Grove to go watch the movie, and you're just in the back with people being like, oh my God, and now you're
Yep.
famous again, and you're
Yep.
like, nobody saw it. And then don't even get me started on the fact that people are like, he might be in you know, Multiverse of Madness, and it's like, well, he's not going
Oh,
to get to go to
shit.
that premiere either.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were some shots that, you know, seeing it on the big screen, IMAX, were just absolutely stunning. That first shot when he's fighting those Joker kids and Matt Reeves
Yes.
places his camera like across the platform, so you
Yes.
get this really nice wide shot. When he blacks out the place, the iceberg lounge, and then, you know,
Yeah.
the gunshots are happening, so like you get the fight in like bits and pieces. moments like this, I just thought
Yeah.
watching it on the big screen is, again, why I love to go to the movies. I love a good car chase. I love
Yep.
good fight sequences that are shot in an interesting way and that I can actually see what's going on. I hate films that are overly edited in those scenes.
Yeah.
And Matt Reeves said that when he did the car chase, he's like, I'm putting the camera in, if I'm putting it on the car, then we're going to see like rain on the camera, like he wanted it to feel as organic as possible. And that really came through.
I thought one of the most brilliant kind of sequences that showed like the difference between Batman, Bruce Wayne, and like who he was becoming was when he goes to the Iceberg Lounge as Batman, and it's like, which also I was like, you just go knock on the door like that?
I did
But
find
like,
that funny too. Yeah.
that freaked me out. I was like, shouldn't you be like sneaking in?
Yeah.
But like how he goes as Batman, proceeds to fight his way in. Then when he comes back as Bruce Wayne, knocks on the door, and they're like, oh my God, it's Bruce Wayne. Come on in, you son of a bitch. And then like when he comes back as like a hybrid of the two and like opens the door and goes, do you know who I am? And then it just becomes like a half like, okay, fine, we'll let you go this far. And now I'm going to fight the rest of the way. Like,
right.
I thought that was, I think those kind of beats from just like a production standpoint and like a storytelling standpoint are so smart because it's like those colors and shades that you notice as you're going through it where you're like, ooh, that was good. That was subtle.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because halfway through the movie, I was like realizing what Matt Reeves was kind of doing where I was like, oh no, actually the villain isn't the Riddler. It's actually Carmine Falcone, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because of the big kind of twist at the end, at least that Bruce has within his own, like, he starts to have like this identity crisis where he's like, oh my gosh, which is why he says to Alfred, you lied to me because of who he thought his father was. Yeah. And then it's like, I've been doing this to avenge my father and to do things in the name of justice. And then my father went and committed this crime. But then the manipulation that Carmine does to him is such a fucked up thing to do. And it's such like a subtly villainy thing to do. Whereas like the Riddler's doing all of these obvious horrible things, but like that's such a subtle mental mind fuck that he just did to like really mess up Bruce Wayne. And that's probably the most evil thing in the whole fucking movie,
And doesn't it speak to like this vigilante thing, right? Where it's like I had a moment when we get to the end where I thought, Joker's insane and he's about to try to kill everybody. But I thought like, oh, but he did kind of get rid of a corrupt cop.
Yes.
Mayoral candidate. And, he kind of like, it was, to me, I was like, well, there's a bit of a moment where people in the city could argue like, was Riddler doing anything different than Batman was, right? Where it was kind of like, because I almost had the same Batman thing where I was like, yeah, we went to Arkham. We're like, we're not on the same team, you dum-dum. And I was like, and movie done. And then when he was like, no, I'm not finished, and I was like, oh, there we go. All right, yep, you are. Yep, you're the bad guy. Sorry, I was about to be like, you're a redeemable psycho, but no, you are insane. We gotta go save everybody.
What an introduction to a fourth act for a film that I didn't know I needed.
I will be very honest. This was much like church in the sense that like I thought the sermon was over at least 4 times. And was amen.
Yes.
And then it was like, and now it was like, and as we walk through.
Yeah, I call that the Return of the King effect, where it's like, oh, it's over. It's not. Oh, it's over. Oh, it's not. What I loved about the Riddler too was obviously that's why he gets all these people to get on his side too, because it's like he's doing these terrible things, but he's also unmasking a greater evil, a more subtle in the shadows kind of evil. And that's one of the best sequences in the film when Peter Sarsgaard, who I had no idea was in this movie, what a special treat. But
this whole movie is like,
bomb.
You're in this movie?
Yeah, the whole movie was a big surprise, but he gets the bomb around his neck and he has, and it's like, all right, 5 minutes. And he lets himself die instead of reveal Carmine Falcone. That is evil. Like, he's like, no, you don't understand how deep this goes.
But that's the thing is like, again, maybe because I'm a snitch, like I was just like, just say it, just say it, just say it. Like I kept thinking he was going to say, I thought his head was going to blow up before he could say it, right? Like I thought that's where we were going, is that he was going to
That would have been good too, yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be like, the rat is kaboom. And instead the fact that he was like you said, he was like, no, I'd rather die. And I was like, what? Yeah. I don't care about anybody that much. Yeah. I'd roll over on anyone I know if I had a bomb around my neck.
Seriously. Seriously. But again, apparently his wife, his kids, everybody would have been dead. So, like that's how deep it goes. Which also, Did anyone else think of the Sherlock Benedict Cumberbatch episode of Moriarty when Moriarty was putting bombs around people's necks?
Yeah.
And was doing
Oh.
kind of like the same thing, and that whole like relationship between Sherlock and Moriarty.
But also because I'm a child, I thought of Wild Wild West too, where I was like when he put this, because again, I'm a child, and I was like, this is like Wild Wild West. I've seen this before.
I thought it was Saul, but okay.
Yeah,
That's what
I
I
mean,
was
it's
Yeah,
not
Saw
necessarily
too.
a problem, but if you enjoy the dynamic between Batman and Riddler, check out that Sherlock show because they kind of did this already, and they did it really well in that. And Moriarty's portrayal in that is just fantastic. But getting back to Batman, I do want to praise John Turturro as Carmine Falcone,
Yeah.
who, we've only seen him once before as Colin Wilkinson, I think, in Batman Begins. And I think just John Turturro just did a fantastic job making him a gangster.
He was
I
in
have-
Batman Begins.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah,
I don't
he
remember.
was. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have to
But
say
briefly.
the part that really got me where I was like, because again, I love the Riddler. The part that got me is when the letter was addressed to Bruce Wayne and then inside said to the Batman. And I really was like, oh, he got him. He got him. He
Yeah.
knows who he is.
Yes.
He knows. And I was like, he's going. And I was on the same journey where when like that video was downloading and he was like, this is the end. And they were like, of what? And he was like, the Batman. Because I was like, yeah, he knows. He knows. Like he's about to tell everybody
know
and
what?
all this stuff.
Thank you for
Oh,
pointing
go
out
ahead.
that scene because I actually just want to give a shout out to the editor of this film because that whole sequence where he realizes that Alfred's in danger and he's calling him and
Yes.
Alfred opens up the letter and you hear the phone ringing and everyone in the theater is thinking, Alfred, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
But then you realize
Yeah.
that it
Yeah,
already
yeah.
happened and that the
That was
audio
my thing too. Yeah.
was present time and the video was in past. That's good editing right there.
Yeah,
I
it
thought
is.
that
Well,
was
it
re-
is.
I thought
Totally
that
got
was
me.
beautiful.
Yeah.
You don't. I don't think you rarely see that kind of play with time and edit. Like it's very much a cinematic technique.
It
that
is,
you don't
yeah.
see very often in superhero movies.
Yeah.
anymore.
It's like it reminded me of that moment in Silence of the Lambs where you think that they're going to the house to help Clarice, but they're not. They're at a
Yeah.
different house. It's
Yes.
like the power of editing. And that to me is just, I love when filmmakers do that, when it's like, fooled you and they subvert it. And that, again, like, chef's kiss. Mwah.
Because I was,
yeah,
I
because
kept
up to that
thinking,
point,
like,
I was thinking-
Alfred, get up and answer the phone. The whole time I was like, get up, go answer the phone. And then when she was like, oh no, Mr. Wayne, something bad has already happened. I
Yeah.
was like,
Chills.
oh.
Yeah.
I thought she was in on it. I thought she was part of
I
Riddler.
did
It's
too.
Like,
Yeah.
I
I
did
thought she
too.
was like, oh
I
no,
thought
they
they
got to her.
Yeah.
I did too. I was
Yeah.
like, they're about
I
to
was
like,
waiting for her like a laughter.
Yeah. like-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the reveal was about, because again, the letter said to Bruce Wayne, and then inside, I was like, ooh, this bitch is a plant. This has been like a Homeland situation. I was like, we gonna find out this is Riddler's mom, and she adopted him, and she's been working there forever, and they've been plotting against this dude, and then I think that's what was like. I think again, that's what's brilliant about Riddler is you have this sense where you're like, he's a genius. He's right. He knows what he's talking about. And then that moment in Arkham Asylum,
Yes.
when he keeps being like, Bruce Wayne.
Wayne. Mhm.
Bruce, and you're like, ooh, he knows. And then he's like, we're gonna kill his ass. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
know.
Another
So you're
great
not as
psych
smart.
out. Yeah.
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 And
For
so
sure.
even that moment when he was like, I thought you got my riddle, I was like, player, you should have turned him in like, I thought you got mine, and then leave and be like, I guess we're both dumb. We both
Yeah.
didn't figure out each other's
Yeah.
plan.
And I just want to point out for that one, another good performance on Robert Pattinson, because hiding in the shadows, you can see like he's welling up with like tears. He's like, oh, the jig is up. But like he's just playing it as cool as humanly possible in those shadows. And when he realizes like, oh, good, I'm safe, I'm fine. Then he
Yeah.
comes back into the light. You know,
Yeah.
great direction from Matt Reeves on this.
Yeah, for sure. And also, at that point, you're like, oh my God, of course Riddler thinks that he's in with him because
Yeah.
he's the fuck. Like we said, he's a weirdo. What is he doing at these crime scenes? What is like, I'm a creep. I don't belong here. Like it's
Yeah.
really literally that. So of course the Riddler's looking at him like a kinship with him.
Yeah.
Which just puts Batman's role in this world. It makes it so much clearer in how the citizens of Gotham think of him. Which is back in the Adam West days. The citizens of Gotham trusted him. They had
Yes.
that red phone and special for him. And now we're in a world where the citizens of Gotham do not trust him. They don't
Like
know
I
who
said,
this guy
the
is.
cartoon era was like, he's James Bond. Everybody loves him. Women are fawning over him. He goes to galas in his bat suit, and people are like, "Oh my God, it's Bruce Wayne!
Yeah.
It's Batman!"
The
And then when he
Bat
comes as Bruce-
2C.
Yeah, and it's like, and there was just, it feeds into that thing where like he thought they were on the same team. It's like, I'm killing bad guys, you're killing bad guys, we're
Mm-hmm.
working together. Like
Yep,
it was
yep.
just yeah.
Really, really good. And also, like, I just want to say that Gotham in this film is like the first time I've actually felt a real sense of the city of Gotham since the 90s.
Okay, good. I was about to say,
yeah.
just like, really not during the Tim Burton era? Like,
Well, Tim Burton, that's one of the best thing about his films is he's an expressionistic filmmaker, and so his Gotham just looks completely out of this world, like out of a painting, out of like a 1920s German expressionist film. And even Joel Schumacher, you know, like his was
they
kind of
continue with, like,
wild.
over the top.
Yeah,
Wacky.
that
But
costume
still-
and set designs were crazy. Whereas Christopher Nolan's Gotham, it didn't really feel like, I didn't get a sense of Gotham, right?
Well, yeah,
That's
and I
true.
think that's because Christopher Nolan really focused on hyper-realism
Yes.
to a fault sometimes.
Yeah.
Where this one kind of went into kind of, again, that grungy look. It's always raining here. We're like in Seattle or something.
And I think the part that always kind of made me roll my eyes with Nolan, right, was like this idea that it's like I'm gonna film Gotham in like forgotten great American cities. So like it's never gonna be one place. It's gonna be like Detroit and Pittsburgh, and you know, it's like you're gonna look and be like, oh, these are forgotten great American cities, and like that's what got. And I was like, bro, I don't need to see freaking any of the damn Steelers players in Gotham. Like I don't need to tie this to the real world. Like let me see this weird underbelly gross place that is literally like the upside down of
Yes.
real life,
Yes.
where it's like there
Yeah.
there are less redeemable good people and more just awful things happening.
But you know, this world also really tried to, you know, put like kind of like a mirror to society, I think, you know, with
Yes.
with Gotham Square Garden and you know, and having iPhones and just like having things that we all can connect with, like the Zodiac references. I definitely think that Matt Reeves was almost kind of going for like this is very much like a reflection of our world.
Yeah.
And to the point where by the time Bella Real like makes her speech at the end and she's like, oh, I wish we could all come together, you're kind of in the audience uncomfortable being like, oh man, if only we could, like you
Right.
feel like she's
And
talking
it's
to
also-
you.
And I think it also, like, her speech at the end is like my joke about Euphoria, where I'm like, Euphoria and Glee exist in the same world, right? Because, like, there are kids who are having a Euphoria experience and there are kids having a Glee experience. And then there are kids, like, who are just like, what the heck? Like, who are just like, who show up to Lexi's play and are like, what?
Yeah.
I didn't know this is what y'all were doing. And I feel like that was kind of the funny thing about her speech is you're like, your speech is lovely that you're like, let's work together, Gotham. And you're like, girl, do you know on the weekends there is a whole underground sex drug club underneath the nightclub? Like, you're just like, what Gotham do you live in? And it kind of helped realize like this thing of like, there are people who are living in this city who are just going to their job at the Dunkin' Donuts, or like they're going to Soul Cycle Gotham, and they're like, you mean to tell me there's been a deadly like terrorist roaming our streets this whole time? And it's like, yeah, you know. Like, and that's what makes you kind of roll your eyes when she's like, this is a new day, and you're like, no, girl, this is Gotham. There is no new day. It's just the same story.
Yeah.
Like, move
Which
on.
also, you're sitting in the theater and you're listening to that and you're like, oh man, it's never gonna end. The crime, it's all never gonna end, you know. So it's crazy. But I love.
There's always a Batman.
Yeah, but you know, there's an overall theme to this film that I really felt like came through. You know, like the whole orphan and parenting and identity issues. I thought was really at the core. You know, because Selena, again, her issues with her father.
Right.
You know, the Riddler
And
being an
estranged
orphan.
father.
Alfred's weird, like kind of like
Yeah.
this is kind of like your father at this point, and you're not really treating him with. I mean, he was a dick to Alfred.
He was. This is actually the
From
meanest
the
I think I've ever
jump.
seen Bruce to
Yeah.
Alfred in a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because so much of
Absolutely.
Alfred is always portrayed as this like beloved caretaker in Bruce's life.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just, it was kind of jarring to see him be like, you lied to me. I hate you, blah, blah, blah. And you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, okay.
And that was one thing that I will say was missing, was kind of like an end scene of them kind of like at least having a step towards, you know, repairing that. Maybe there wasn't, I can't remember it, but I don't think it was there. And that was one thing that I was like, I don't know, if you have this thing where Selina's thing with her father got resolved and the Riddler's got resolved, you know, I know there's going to be more Batman movies, so maybe they'll eventually get resolved, but at least have something with Alfred.
It was kind of resolved when he realized that, like, the moment he was most scared since, like, his parents' death was when Alfred was about to die, you know.
I guess.
So it was kind of there.
Kind of there, yeah.
I mean, maybe.
This is emo Bruce. He's not going to give you everything.
This is true. Well, yeah, he gave me all the emo, and I did love that.
I did appreciate, like, I really did appreciate, because it also made the switch to me, at least, still, between the two personas make sense, because he was so awkward. I mean, just him walking to that church for the funeral, you're like, open your mouth, speak. You're so weird. Don't just
I got that social anxiety disorder moment with him.
The whole time I was like, bro, don't leave your house if it makes you this uncomfortable. And it's like, here he can't even like form a sentence. Meanwhile, as the Batman, he's able to like talk to Selina Kyle and like be like super smooth,
flirty.
and all this stuff, and like
you see him wanting to be vulnerable,
yeah,
but he can't yet. But you know, I mean,
just creep
performances.
It just made me so uncomfortable. I hated it.
Yeah. So performances, filmmaking, stylization, great editing and sound editing. You know, one of the last things I want to talk about is that music, that score by Michael Giacchino. You know, that's the thing, is that Batman's music is always such an important part of his media representation, right? Mm-hmm. And the Danny Elfman score, back from the back, you know, Batman, like we all still know that fucking song. It was so iconic. The Danny Elfman score that was also used in the animated series. Even like every single Batman score has been so important to the overall feeling of kind of like the stylization of it. And I even made a post on social media where I was just like, you know, what's your ultimate Batman theme? And I did. Overall, I think Danny Elfman has gotten it for, you know, the Batman in 1989. But I honestly think that this is probably the best Batman music since the Batman Forever movie. Because I personally love the Batman Forever music. I personally love it. But
no, I agree with you. I think there's something about when I first heard a song in the trailers, I'm just like, oh, this is an interesting move. To me, it sounded very reminiscent of Darth Vader's theme. Dun, dun,
yeah,
dun,
it's a very distinct, dark. I'll be honest, my thing about scores is that my feeling is I want to either not notice it or love it, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't even want to, like, if it's bad, then I'm like, well, you ruined the movie. I'm like, I'd rather not pay attention. I think what I loved in particular, again, on the Riddler, is like, I love this idea of taking Ave Maria and putting it in a minor chord, and that was his theme. Like, I just think there's a lot of smart choices made, and again, being a snob who plays like an orchestral instrument, I'm always very big on like when and how the bass line is used and the richness of the sound. Like, I always learn from my orchestra conductor, it's like, listen for the bass, that will tell you the richness of the sound of what you're. And so I loved that it was this very like bass heavy creation, because it gave a lot of depth to the music and a depth to the characters that needed to be there, as we're like Riddler taking Ave Maria into a minor chord gave it such like dissonance, like auditory dissonance, that you were like, ooh, I don't, okay, let's not do that anymore. Like, it made you not enjoy his presence on screen, because it was like, I don't want to hear that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, MacKenzie, what instrument?
I play bassoon.
Ooh. Wow, that is so fucking cool. Yeah, I loved it. I loved that everyone had a theme. Actually, Catwoman's theme, because I'm a nerd, and I'm like I love listening to film scores. It was very reminiscent of Selina's theme in Batman Returns. Okay. So I kind of thought that was a nice callback that he did. But yeah, overall, I just thought that it was it really set the tone of the film very well. And also,
I agree.
Yeah. And costume design. What did you guys think about the costume design for this film?
I was so pleased with the Catwoman costume, because I will be honest,
Me too. Yeah.
It always takes such a weird, cartoony. It's like Batman always gets this cool thing, and then they somehow always find out, like, God bless Michelle Pfeiffer, but the latex with the white stitching and the cat ears and the tail, and you're like, girl, what? Or even Anne Hathaway, I love her too, but it's like now you got like a cat ear headband on. Like, what is happening? I thought this was like very clever in the sense that you were like, I could believe that this is a cat burglar. Like, this is what she wears to rob people, rather than it being like, oh, you take time. Now, I will say on Batman, I was like, child, if he takes another beat to go put on this damn eyeshadow, I cannot with this. Like, that was the part that every time, like, I couldn't get myself to stop being like, it's taken him a long time to come out on that subway platform because he got his eyeshadow on. And I was like, this man had to get shoved in a corner because he got to put his damn eyeshadow on.
Yeah, yeah.
I will say this though, I appreciated that eyeshadow only because all the Batman have worn
I
eyeshadow
agree.
before.
Like, it's good, but it was just like the fact that they made a point to be like eyeshadow.
Yeah, they let you know too. Yeah, when he's not wearing the mask, there's eyeshadow underneath it. Just like, oh, okay, good. They broke that fourth wall finally.
Yes.
Yes.
And I was like, and again, it added to my like, he's so awkward as Bruce Wayne that it's like that's like the last vestiges of Bruce Wayne. It felt like to me to be like, I gotta do the thing, and then Batman's like, move out of the way, weirdo. Like, put the cowl on, put the suit. I thought Riddler's costume was so unnerving. It was so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's that parka.
Yeah, it's something, not even just the parka, but something about like covering your head in plastic wrap. Again, adds to like, this is an unhinged man to cover your head in plastic wrap, then wrap yourself in duct tape and like a gimp mask. It was like, oh my God. I don't like this. As somebody who also needs glasses to see, I love that he has to take a beat to put his glasses on over his mask.
Yeah.
I love it.
I was wanting his costume to be a little bit more like costumey and like at least like villainy, because even with the Joker, when they're like more like real or whatever, like he's still got the classic Joker thing with the purple and the green hair and the white face. So it's like I kind of wanted him to be a little bit more like it didn't feel like a comic book villain, but that's my own personal thing. I like a nice balance.
I have to say, it felt like an origin of the Riddler in the sense that, like, again, the Jim Carrey of it all, right? It's like the dude in the suit and there's question marks all over it. Yeah. And so it felt very like homemade and weird and like his first like foray into trying out this persona. But there was just something that like comforted my little nerd heart when they pulled him out of the cafe and he had made the classic question mark in the latte. And I just thought to myself, like, all right, you're sitting in an Arkham Asylum with like the man who is the king of villains with theatricality. I was like, Joker's gonna teach him like, no, you gotta add some razzle dazzle to your crime. Like you gotta get an outfit and you gotta get a thing and like
don't be afraid of color.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, I was like, I love it. I love this for them, is like for him to kind of be in Arkham with him, for him to teach him like what he got right and what he got wrong this time.
Well, now I hope Matt Reeves gives us that scene. I want to see like a queering eye of Riddler.
I know, right? I just want to see him again, because like who didn't love that in the Jim Carrey version where it's like a bolt of fabric, tailoring, like
the leotards, the sparkle, the light up question marks all over. I mean, those costumes were statement pieces, and I think this was lacking. On the Batman costume, I just want to say though, when I first saw like the pictures of it, I wasn't thrilled with it. I didn't like the collar, for example. Okay. I just thought it was like, these are a little weird, and it felt a little homemade. I think they were still going that route. By the time I saw it in the movie, though, I think the way it flowed and it fit into the world, I thought it looked fabulous. I thought it looked great. Yeah. I think they gave Robert Pattinson more of a mouthpiece because Christian Bale's was smaller, and it always looked awkward. Yeah, I think he got. So I ended up loving. I thought the costume looked great.
I have to say, because it is so realism based, there are like, I trust Matt Reeves with like certain villains that I think have had a bad shake. Like I really want to see a well done Poison Ivy, but I'm also like, how does Poison Ivy fit in this world? Right? It's like, because this is not the land of like Uma Thurman's whatever the hell that was, like Katharine Hepburn meets superhero
meets drag queen.
Meets drag queen. It's like, obviously this is gonna have to be a woman that like has a level of subtlety to the thing. Like the same thing with Harley Quinn. Like I'm like, I want to see what Matt Reeves's version of these things comes out as, because
Absolutely.
what you imagine, again, off of the like the spandex and the light up question marks and the literal Two-Face or the penguin with the hands and the face, is instead you get like a guy who's got a disfigured scar on his face that has given him this like hook pointy nose. It's like you get like I would love to see what his interpretation is of these very cartoony things.
Absolutely.
Poison Ivy I think would be easy because like I think a lot of people can empathize with her love of the environment considering how we're going right now.
This is true.
Like I picture a world where like they make Poison Ivy an anti-hero, not a straight up villain.
Yeah.
But they did it well with Riddler, right? It's like you can't
Yeah.
help but the world we live in now, sit in that audience as he talks about the corruption of the people. Like I said, I was like, well, he did get rid of a corrupt mayoral candidate and a dirty cop, and I mean, it was wrong. He probably shouldn't have done it that way. But I mean, it's one less criminal, politician. And it's like, and I think it would be the same thing with Ivy, right? It's like if some woman stood on a screen and was like full on eco-terrorism, we'd be like, well, I mean, she's got a point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would root for her.
We are destroying the planet, but then it's like it's that little beat where you're like, okay. It's like the way I feel about cults. It's like I'm with them until there's one thing you say that I'm like, oh,
you crossed that line.
Yeah, I'm like, I was with you, Tom.
I was with you
till
till
you
the
said
end.
it was a spaceship. Like,
Yeah,
I was good on the like, we should be nice to each other. Like, we should find alternatives for traditional medicine. And then like, oh, there is an alien living in my body. Okay, I'm out. Thanks a lot.
Seriously. I completely, though, agree with you, MacKenzie. I'm so excited to see more from Matt Reeves because this is actually something that even though DC is really problematic and it's like what's going on with the DCEU or whatever, what they do is that every film feels like that filmmaker's film. The thing that I don't like about Marvel is that it doesn't matter who's directing it. All of these films have the same template that they're all supposed to abide by.
The exact same.
Which is why I didn't go and see Ant-Man, because Edgar Wright, one of my favorite filmmakers, he walked off of the project because he wasn't able to do what he does. He needed to follow their template.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, I can't see this because it's not going to be a film. It's just going to be a template. And DC doesn't do that. And it's all over the place. It's confusing timeline-wise, but I appreciate that they will put that filmmaker's artistry first.
I have to say, for an argument, again, like, no surprise, I'm going to, like, try to defend the Marvel of it all. But, right, like, I think there's something to be said about, I think it pushes your creativity when you're given constraints. And there's like very specific guardrails, because it's like, right, it's like when they'll do those things where it's like, Project Runway of it all, where it's like, this is the dress, everybody has to make their version of it, and it's like, guess what, surprise, like the most creative person will figure out how to take those rules and make you something beautiful, right? Like Chloe Zhao or Ryan Coogler, it's like all of a sudden you're like, damn,
that's true.
So this is what this can be if you like can really push it. But I do think there's a moment where part of me is like, that's what's missing from the DCEU, where I'm like, I hope other people look at what Matt Reeves has done.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And try to figure out like what's my interpretation on like kind of this like magical realism version of a like ostensibly a cartoon, right?
Yeah.
Because I think like that is what makes it disjointed, is you're just like, you're like, the Suicide Squad has got like a full on like kapow, like squeaky toy, like, it's like sound in it, and you're just like, ooh, and then like Harley Quinn is like, people punch somebody and glitter explodes out of their body.
Right.
And, like, and then like Chris Nolan's got a full cave full of bats. Also, God bless every director that gets Batman, because they clearly all are like, well, you gotta have bats. You gotta always like, it's always so literal with Batman, where it's like, well, you gotta have a place with bats.
We gotta talk about his parents.
It's like, and I just thought he in that kind of marvelly way, like he took those constraints, those like, you gotta do these things, and did them in a way that I was like, oh, that's clever. Like, rather than the usual like, the opening signal with the bats emerging, it's like, no, the bat cave is a literal cave. It's not a fancy high-tech space, it's a cave.
Although
why there are bats.
I missed the pole that they go down on, but for sure.
I do have to say, I missed the very over-the-top mansion that leads into a super stylized high-tech like full space where you're like, what the heck?
Well,
this is in your house?
I became worried for Bruce afterwards, because just like, yo, like, the city just flooded. They're going to be draining all this stuff.
I
Like
kept
someone
thinking that
may
too.
come across your Batcave. You
Do
know
you
that,
know
right?
how much I wonder that whenever I watch a movie that has a construction of a secret space? Because I'm like, there is a contractor
That's also-
somewhere in Gotham City
Yeah.
who is like,
Did he kill him?
I'm-
What did he do?
Yeah, I was like, there's some contractor who everybody thinks is insane because at his family's Thanksgiving, he's like, guys, I built Bruce Wayne
I'm telling you,
a
Bruce
bat
Wayne.
cave.
Yeah, yeah.
I had to put parking spaces in and plumbing and wiring. I'm pretty sure he's Batman. Like,
Absolutely. Well, to
I feel
start,
like-
go for it,
No,
Eddie.
no, I would just love to see a story where it's like an intern at an architect.
Putting the
and-
pieces together.
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
like he's like going through the archives, like, you know, just being proactive, going through the archives, and all of a sudden he's like, wait a minute, what is this?
Yeah.
What is this
Schematic
What is
large
this paperwork for? Yeah.
structure doing here?
Yeah, how does
Yeah.
how does Bruce like go around like paying for all of this and nobody like
Lots
his
of
accountant
hush
doesn't
money.
see it?
I say
but,
that
yeah.
constantly.
Yeah.
I'm like somebody on like the Bruce Wayne Trust is like, hey, Mr. Wayne, not to alarm you, but it looks like we have been making sizable purchases from a military supply
Yeah.
company.
Yeah, how is he not in jail?
Yeah.
But to wrap this up, we always ask a question at the end, you know, and it's one that I'm really excited to hear your answers on. Did you guys think that this Batman, this reboot of the Batman, was needed?
We'll let Mackenzie go first. Go.
Yeah.
Ooh. Was it okay? See, because the question was it needed?
Mm-hmm.
And coming off the slight dumpster fire that was the Justice League and the end of Peacemaker that asked us, does Aquaman actually have sex with fish? I think this was needed. I definitely think this was needed to kind of like give the DCEU a chance to be a legitimate player in the kind of world of storytelling in this superhero era of film.
Yeah. Yeah. Rolando?
Yeah, I came out thinking like same thing. It's just like, oh, I didn't realize. I thought, you know, it's just like, wow, I already got my 3 good Batman films that I like. The Dark Knight trilogy. It's like, do we need another Batman story? I know that like Justice League did leave a sour taste in a lot of DC fans, but it's just like, all right, but like at least Snyder, I'll say this, he did have a vision for his story. Like, it wasn't one that I liked, but it was his vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if I need another Batman film for a while. I think DC has a huge roster of characters to explore. Why are we focusing so much on Batman? But then I came out of the theater and was like, oh no, I needed this one. This was such a, it was a good movie. It was a good mystery. I loved a lot of the portrayals here. So it was just like, yeah, no, I needed it. I didn't know I needed it,
Yeah.
but I needed it.
And you know, I'm different from you guys because I'm not the biggest superhero content person.
Shame.
I'm just like a movie person, and I like a balance of like type of movies, and I feel like there's way too many superhero movies and not enough of like other. So why I'm gonna say that this was needed is because if you're not someone who's super into the superhero, you know, fandom world, I think this is actually a good movie for you because at the end of the day, this is a great film. And it works outside of that, you know, like I think it goes beyond, like you don't need to watch all these other films. It's a standalone film on its own. And I just think that it's a bit long, you know, and I went into it being like 3 fucking hours superhero movie. And yet I came out kind of really loving it. And I don't, you know, I'm not a Christopher Nolan fan either. So to me, this is one of the best Batman films since the 90s.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, you're just like trying to stab me, but that's fine. I will say this though, the movie it was 3 hours. It did not feel it. I think it had a good pace because by the end I was just like, oh, that kind of. I think
Yeah.
it, for me,
Last 20
kind of by the
minutes
end-
kind of felt it, but
Like
the
I said,
rest
I
did.
thought the movie might have been over 4 times, so there were like some points where I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is good. This was a good." Oh, let me sit back down. Like, there were
Yeah,
definitely,
yeah.
definitely those.
And then the other thing I will, to your point though, Nicole, this is kind of, it feels like a standalone movie, and I kind of do appreciate that because my not problem with Marvel, because I love going to the Marvel movies, but sometimes they feel like a TV show where I'm just like, if I miss one movie, I had to like play catch up. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
And like this does offer audiences an opportunity, just like you haven't seen the other ones, it doesn't matter. This is a brand new thing, and like whether or not it's going to be continued, we don't know. They don't know yet. I don't think it's been announced if there's a sequel officially.
No,
yet.
it's just
I
a
thought-
good night out
yeah.
at the movies. Yeah.
I do have to say, off of what you said, Nicole, in terms of like since the 90s, I have to say, like, I've always been an Eartha Kitt fan, right? I love what Eartha Kitt did and created with Catwoman. I think we have watched decades of Batman film and TV of people trying to do their version of Eartha Kitt. Where it becomes like, ooh, this kitty wants to scratch. Come over and talk to me, Batman, and all this stuff. This very like Mae Westy kind of thing. And I think what I loved about this film is what you said. If you know nothing about any of this, if you have no clue what Batcat is, if you have no clue that Eartha Kitt or Julie Newmar ever played Catwoman, if you don't know that anybody's ever played the Riddler, if you don't know who the hell the Joker even is, you can sit in this film and at the end of 3 hours, I mean, not for my mother who could give a damn about these superhero films, but like you could sit through that 3 hours and be like, that was a good movie. That was fun. And then like, it was a good mystery. It was all of it. But like for the people that get the shades, it was something for them too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? Let's do a lightning round, okay? What we've been waiting for
Lightning round.
to pick
Yay.
our favorite versions of these characters. And I say, let's start with Catwoman. MacKenzie. I think I know yours. Eartha Kitt. Look at that.
Eartha Kitt.
She is one of the most iconic Catwomen, for sure. And a lot of people don't know that there were 3 Catwomen for the 60s series because she's the one that just stands above the rest. You know?
I mean,
she
didn't
wasn't
know
even in the
because
movie.
Nicole corrected me when I sent the email to you, MacKenzie. She's just like, you forgot Lee Merriweather.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
Oops.
but I think like that's what I love is like, right, it's like you wait for somebody to set the bar, right? It's like I feel like you got Eartha Kitt, you got Heath Ledger on Joker. Like you have people that set the like, oh damn, I gotta try to do that. And I think I love all the other Catwomen that have followed. Love Halle Berry. I love Anne Hathaway. Again, I have famously said if somebody could play me in a movie, it would be Anne Hathaway. But like but like everybody has felt like they are doing a version of Eartha Kitt. And that's why I love her. And then that's what makes me love Zoe independently is that she was like, forget this. I'm doing my own version.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Rolando?
Mine is actually Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman because I think seeing her go from mousy to like dominatrix almost to like just going unhinged, it was just a great character arc that we get to see for her. And I actually do enjoy the costume. I think it's so... not practical, but it is iconic.
I mean, she was thrown out of like a 25-foot floor window, died, but then got revived by the licks of cats, and then came out to be this fierce ass bitch who just like gives the greatest zingers and one-liners. Like, if that's not like everyone's goals, then I don't know what your goals are. Reevaluate your life.
Yeah, I have to say she's a close second for me because I just always thought that Catwoman was like unhinged. I was like,
oh yeah, she was. Yes.
Like when people talk about like, oh, my ex was a crazy bitch. Like that's who they're talking about.
That's who
Michelle Pfeiffer.
And she got that whip action down. So impressive too.
So psychotic. I love it.
Eddie?
Well, also Michelle Pfeiffer.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
And it's
that's my youth,
it's
right?
It's just like just being a little gay boy looking at her and just like, oh my God, this is what. I mean, before I had a name for it, that was camp for me.
Yes,
like,
it was that.
Just her movement, her body, and just the way she just dominated each scene. I was just like,
I love her so much.
Amazing.
Definitely. And Nicole?
No, Michelle Pfeiffer for me too. Yeah.
Michelle Pfeiffer for you?
Yeah, for sure.
Michelle Pfeiffer wins.
With Eartha Kitt being a second, the second, and then all the way at the end is Anne Hathaway, and I'll just leave it at that.
Wow.
All right, so the Riddler and our 3 options are Frank Gorshin from the 60s, Jim Carrey from Batman Forever, and Paul Dano in this new one. MacKenzie, who's your Riddler?
Oh my God, I have to pick between Paul Dano because see, here's the thing: it's a battle royale between Jim Carrey and Paul Dano.
Absolutely.
Only because he is very unsettling and made me so uncomfy with that stupid mask. I'm gonna have to put Paul Dano first.
Okay. All right.
I was also going to go Paul Dano, but I think that was recency bias because when I was rewatching the Batman Forever, I was just like, oh, I don't know. Like, this performance is just so over the top, crazy, wacky. It's silly, but like in the best way possible. So I'm going to go with, it's just like, it's so draggy. I loved it.
Yes,
I'm going with Jim Carrey.
Oh, it is.
I have to bring my love to Mr. Frank Gorshin because I also think that he came up with the classic supervillain laugh. With his Riddler laugh from the 60s one where he was like, like it was so creepy. Cesar Romero too with the Joker, but I honestly think that like Cesar Romero's Joker was just kind of like flighty, whereas like the Riddler was actually really evil and his outfit is so tight. I just, yeah. I got to show some love to Frank Gorshin's Riddler. You know, I think he set a bar there.
That's every Joker, every Riddler has been picked. Eddie, do you have you got a tiebreaker?
Yeah.
No, Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey.
Okay.
If anything, for the costume changes that he does.
Yeah, they were
I think,
just
like,
but
so
like
thought
again,
out.
this is why I love that era of Batman, right? It's like I loved that there were like that you had like what was his face like when he was Mr. Freeze, he had like
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, like Schwarzenegger basically had like what was that Rich Widow dressing gowns to wear, and then like I loved like that was just an era where I was like, oh my god, being in the Batman world is awesome because it's like, you know, Robin had like choices and suits and outfits and clothes, and like Alicia Silverstone had like a range of Batgirl outfits, and it's just like, yeah, like the costumes in that era of Batman are just like, what a fun time. What
Absolutely.
a great, like, love to see it. Love this for all of you.
Joel Schumacher,
Same.
that's what he brought, costume design, and it was fucking
Yes.
awesome. All right, last
world
but
was
not
never the same.
least, Oswald Cobblepot / Penguin, and our three to pick from are Burgess Meredith in the 60s, Danny DeVito from Batman Returns, and now Collin Farrell. MacKenzie?
I mean, Collin Farrell, because I forgot that Collin Farrell was in this movie. I repeatedly had no idea who the actor was and had to keep being like, Collin Farrell. It is Collin Farrell.
Yeah.
I'm voting Collin Farrell as well. I think he just disappeared in the role, and I appreciate that.
Wow. I mean,
Danny DeVito being a close second for me because that was just such a
I know.
weird performance.
to me, this is the hardest one because they're all so different, right? And they all do a different interpretation. You know, I actually love the Burgess Meredith and where he's like half gangster, half like wah, wah, which Danny DeVito actually calls to. Like, if you really listen closely, Danny DeVito's going like wah,
Oh, yeah.
wah in the movie. But also the prosthetics for Danny DeVito and that portrayal and that insane storyline that they just fucked the comic books and came up with for the movie.
Yes.
But then you got a completely different, not Penguin. Like, it's just, this one's so hard. But since you guys aren't doing it, I got to give love to Danny DeVito.
Oh, Danny DeVito.
See, see again. He's a close second because those creepy, pointy black teeth.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or when he bites the AIDS nose, for
guy's
example,
nose.
like, just blood spreading. Terrified me as a kid.
But then his heartfelt moments where he's like, I was an orphan and I just want to know who my parents are.
Yeah.
You know, so. Yeah.
So many orphans in Gotham. I just
So
realized.
many. You're gonna be a villain or a hero if you're an orphan in Gotham, pretty much.
Basically, yeah.
Danny DeVito was
Danny
mine
DeVito,
also,
right.
and this was too. It's just because it was like taking that character campy, but also terrifying.
You know
Yeah.
what? You just said the perfect thing. Batman prior to this has been high camp. Like, ignore the Chris Nolan. Like, prior to this, it was full camp. It was like weird forced perspective, all this stuff. Again, Catwoman is licked to life by a bunch of cats. It's like everybody tried to get that level of camp. Like, Halle Berry tried, and it was like, no, the reason it worked is because it was full on camp. Like,
Right.
Yes.
at one point, Batman had bat nipples. Like, come on. This is nonsense. Like, what?
And like I said, the world was never the same after those.
Well, I mean,
you know?
if you get a gay man directing a Batman movie like Joel Schumacher, you know there's going to be ass shots. So.
I mean, what a treat. What a
What a
treat.
treat.
Remember, that was the opening of Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
I
It was
do.
just,
Yes.
just
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
butts. And I remember being like, I love this movie. This
Yeah.
is great. Boys are fun. Like,
I did-
that being my takeaway.
I mean, it was one of the moments where I was just like, flip the popcorn, I'm gay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's
That,
done.
that was me for Nicole Kidman. How highly sexualized was that movie? Like, shit.
Well,
now that I
yeah.
think about it.
I gotta post this video, the one that I did in grad school, where I just like took all the hypersexualized moments of the male physique in the Batman films. I made like a short film where I took all these. It was like found footage, so I took all these footage from like the Batman series of these hyper masculine sexual moments that are non-sexual in the film, but like, let's be real, like they're super sexual.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
hell
just
yeah.
like, you know,
Hell yeah. Yeah.
I gotta post that one day.
But yeah.
But
So let us know your thoughts. You can comment on our social media platforms on Instagram at Remakes, Reboots, Revivals. We're on Twitter at Remakes Podcast. You can always email us, Remakes, Reboots, Revivals. Find us on Facebook, YouTube. Just search for us. And MacKenzie, it was such a fucking thrill to have you. I hope you can come back
yes.
soon. Please, where can people find you?
People can find me on Instagram at MissUSA2TOMBA, like the degree. I like to say 9 to 5, you can find me at my job. And, Fridays, you can find me on the Taylor Strucker Show. But it was a real treat, guys. I rarely get an opportunity to talk all things fandom in my life, so this was a real treat to have a reason to go see the Batman and pretend that it was for research.
Yes. Now you can expense that ticket for sure.
Exactly.
Yes,
See, you
yes.
get it. You get it.
Yeah. No, MacKenzie, thank you so much. Loved hearing your take. And yeah, no, like Nicole said, you are welcome. If there's any nerdy shit that comes up that you want to cover one day, just hit us up.
Seriously.
Listen, you know, Marvel's got all the things. If you guys need somebody to come back when, you know,
Fantastic Four is what I'm thinking.
we.
Ooh,
jeez, don't
that's
get
a
me
good
started.
one.
You know, if you need anybody to come by for Black Panther, I'm happy to come back.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Hold you to it.
Oh, we'll be calling you. But until next time, stay
unoriginal.
unoriginal.